To become truly proficient in a foreign language, you need to spend a lot of time listening to, reading, and understanding that language. But that doesn't mean that you can just put on Cantonese talk radio for 5,000 hours and become as proficient as a native speaker. There's a direct relationship between what input you engage with and the amount of the language you learn. As language learners, how do we know what to spend our valuable time with? Stephen Krashen has explored this idea before in a video titled Optimal Input. While that video is very good, I think there are some things missing that I want to expand on. Specifically, he was sort of focused on the linguistic concepts rather than how creators or learners can use or create optimal input. In this video, I'm going to cover the 4 aspects of optimal input and hopefully shed some light on the topic. As you're watching this video, try to think about how you can apply these concepts to your own language adventures. If you're a learner, think about what kinds of content you can search out or request. And if you're someone who's interested in creating content for others to learn your native language, take notes. Think about the things that you'd be interested in watching, and if you make quality content, people will watch and enjoy your content. As I said, there are 4 aspects to optimal input, and I think of them as the 4 C's. The best input is comprehensible, compelling, quality, and lastly, abundant. Each of these aspects has 2 sides to it. The first side is more of the linguistic idea, which deals with how we as humans acquire languages. And the other side is the learner factor, which deals with how people generally like to engage with the learning process. Okay, that didn't make a ton of sense, so let me give you an example. The first aspect is comprehensible, since, as we know, content needs to be understandable in order for us to learn from it. And if you're not understanding anything, then you're not learning anything. Linguistically speaking, we don't acquire language unless we understand some amount of it. This is the whole basis of the comprehensible input hypothesis and immersion learning in general. In a linguistic sense, you want to be able to understand the message and get what's going on. That's the food that your brain requires to learn. But more relevant for us as a learner is the factor that it's more fun to understand. Movies and books are actually more fun if you know what's going on. This is why many people are afraid of or don't try immersion learning without someone telling them specifically to go do it. It's just not that much fun to not understand, which is where basically everybody starts. And so that's one of the main factors in optimal input, being comprehensible. It helps us learn linguistically and is more engaging for us as learners. You want to look for or create content that is comprehensible to your level. And it's totally fine for things not to be 100% comprehensible or for them to be difficult to comprehend. Those are both fine. At the beginning of the process, it would be impossible for something to be 100% understandable. So finding content where you can understand something is more than enough. And you should be using techniques to make things more comprehensible, like doing lookups or pausing and re-listening. The second C is compelling, and it's almost as important as the first. Generally, you need to be interested in what's happening to learn anything from it. As a baby, language was incredibly compelling since your little mind wanted to conceptualize the world, and your native language was the way to do that. Compelling content does 2 things. I'm sure you've experienced the first in your daily life. When you try to learn something that you're interested in and care about, you seem to remember so much more in less time. But when you're trying to jam information into your head for work or school, it feels like trying to fill a colander with sand. It takes more time and more effort to achieve worse results. The same thing applies to language learning. It's almost never the fault of the language, but the content you're engaging with. Tons of people try Duolingo Japanese for a few weeks and decide that they're not actually interested in Japanese because it's so boring. It's really just the content that they're engaging with that's boring. And obviously, on the other side, if you're compelled by a piece of content, you'll naturally want to return to it. And a daily habit is critical for success. So when you're hooked by a piece of content, it's a much different learning experience. You forget you're studying and just want to keep going to find out what happens. The third aspect is quality, which is the largest split between the linguistic and learner sides. Quality, from a linguistic point of view, is about having a lot of rich, dense language for your brain to use as fuel. You want to be exposed to real, natural language and understand that, not some fake idea of the language. When some people go to make content for learners, they might try to make their speech artificially slow and speak like this, and use words that would be otherwise awkward or weird. This might feel like it's helping, but it's really just holding learners back from getting comfortable with the language as it actually exists. And on the other side of quality is the actual quality of the content. Now I'm talking about audio, video, subtitles, spelling, punctuation, that sort of thing. If you've ever been on the internet, you'll know that the quality of content varies greatly. And it's much more enjoyable to watch, listen, or read content of higher quality. I'm not saying that every learner video needs to have the production quality of a blockbuster film, but it is important to find or make things that you would want to watch. I've seen so many people struggle to find learners to watch their videos or read their stories since the average quality is quite low. I personally struggle to watch or listen to anything with terrible audio since it hurts my ears. And so I might be missing perfect content just because of a dumb microphone. And the final aspect that's important is abundance, which definitely starts with a C. It's just silent. Again, there are two main sides to this aspect. The first is that you do need a sheer critical mass of content to make any sort of progress in a language. I'm talking about thousands of hours. While that shouldn't all be from one source or all beginner materials, it's an often overlooked piece of the puzzle. Many comprehensible input channels only have 10 to 20 hours of content total, which might seem like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't. A great example of a channel with plenty of resources is the Comprehensible Thai YouTube channel, which has over 2,000 videos. Most of them are over 20 or even 30 minutes long. As a viewer, it's really nice to be able to rely on a few people for consistent input. People usually speak with their own idiolect, that's each person's personal way of speaking their native language, and you can get used to it much more easily than all accents. As a child, you very likely had a huge portion of your input from close family members, teachers, and maybe a TV show or two. These sorts of things affect our speaking and language acquisition in subtle yet real ways. But most languages have less than 20 hours of beginner materials total. As a personal example, I have about 130, 140 hours in Czech as of writing this video, but only 60 hours of unique input, which means I did about 70 hours of rewatching the same things over and over again, since I already exhausted basically all of the beginner materials. I found a few channels that have content, watched it all, then watched it all again, and again, and again. There just isn't anyone producing enough content to keep up with a normal learning speed, not even with a multi-year head start on me. And no, I'm not expecting to have an army of people making Czech videos for me to watch. It's a pretty small language after all, but there are a fair number of creators trying. It just doesn't appeal to me since it's mostly about grammar or in English. And I've heard similar complaints from basically everyone. Unless you're learning a language that happens to have a ton of amazing creators for beginners, such as Spanish, Thai, and Japanese come to mind, your best bet is probably just to get into full-speed native content and make the best of it. I don't think that'll be the case for much longer as immersion learning becomes more popular and people start to target that market for content specifically. Okay, to wrap it up and to give you a visual representation, here are the four aspects and how to think about them from a learner and linguist point of view. For things to be comprehensible, you want to understand a decent number of words and grammar patterns, but also to have it be enough so that you have fun, since no one wants to be bored out of their skull. And we want things to be compelling so that you're more readily able to absorb the material and learn from it. And it doesn't feel as much like you're learning since you just want to know what happens next. We also want to make sure we're using quality content that has lots of rich vocabulary, that is actually useful for our learning and presents us with the language as it's actually used in everyday life. But we also don't want for things like the audio, video, or text quality to get in the way of being able to focus or hear the language. And finally, you want to use content that has lots of variety to let you get enough compelling, comprehensible, and quality input. And this way, you can also start to rely on a smaller group of people to help you get your footing in the language, especially in the beginning, before expanding to the rest of the speakers. So, that's everything I have on optimal input. I hope that you learned something or at least had a good time. If you're a language learner, keep these various aspects in mind when choosing input to put time into. And when you find a source that checks all the boxes, hold tight and don't let go. Especially if it's an independent creator, heavily consider paying for the content so that they don't have to stop producing it for monetary reasons. And for those of you who are interested in making content for learners of your native language, use as many of these aspects as you can. And if you make quality content that you personally would be interested in, you will find viewers. And be sure to listen to their feedback. If you keep going, improving, and sharing your amazing language, it may even become a bigger project. In fact, I'm slowly working on my own project like that, and will be sure to share everything I learn along the way, so get subscribed if you're interested in that. I'm gonna end the video here though. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff that helps the YouTube channel. And if you follow any comprehensible input creators who might be able to improve in some of these areas, politely and kindly let them know. Anyway, I'll catch you next time, and as always, happy immersing.